All right, we're looking at the 5.8 guided notes. This is all about graphing the absolute value function, and I want to do this in a way that we get a real clear-cut idea of what the graph looks like, and maybe a way of easily graphing these absolute value functions without really having to do a whole lot of work. So let's just find out a little bit about these and see if we can't develop an idea as to how we can graph absolute value functions quite easily. So a translation, just so you know what a word translation means, it's a shift of a graph horizontally, vertically, or both. The result of it is a graph of the same size and shape, but in a different position. And we'll discover that here just a little bit. So if we're going to translate a graph, we need to have somewhere to start first, right? Because a translation is something that takes something old and translates it or transforms it into something new. So let's start with what's called a parent function. And here we have the absolute value function, y equals the absolute value of x. That's this guy right here. And so what I want to do is, since, yeah, that didn't look too good. Since I'm just going to make a little chart right here. All right, since the x values are independent variable, that means we have the freedom to choose, and our y value then would be dependent on x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a chart here. I'm going to put some values in for x, see what I get for y, and then plot those and see what we get as far as the graph is concerned. So here I'm going to take the value of -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to take these, I'm going to plug it into the function over here and see what I get out for y. So when I say y equals the absolute value of -2, then my value here becomes 2. So I know this is going to give me a 2, and if I plug a -1 in here, then I know it's just going to make it positive, and then I'll end up with a 1. And the absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of 1 is 1, and the absolute value of 2 is 2. Now recall, the absolute value is the distance away from 0 on a number line. Or, in short, it takes anything negative and makes it positive. So we can plot these points here on our graph. And we got -2, 2. We got -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2. Now I can start to see the shape of this graph lining up here. Now I know that the shape of an absolute value graph is a line, and it looks like a V. So I know it's going to go look like this, and then like that. Getting on my points there. So what does this graph look like? Well, it looks like a V. What's unique about this graph? Well, the one unique point on this graph would be this tip here, the little point right here, where the V kind of the bottom part or the pointy end of the V here. And this, in mathematics or in general, we call this point right here, and I'll put it in red. I'll say this point right here is 0, 0. The point 0, comma 0. For this graph, in particular, this is called the vertex. In other words, where it was going down, 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 and turns and starts going up, 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 that point is called the vertex. So that red point there is the vertex. All right, so let's see. We want to graph this x minus 2 here. Well, I could go through the same gamut of plugging in numbers and seeing what we get. But I'm just going to go ahead and show you. For time's sake, I'm going to graph this because I already know what happens here. So I'm just going to let you take a little look here at this one. Like so. All right, so what then can we say? The comparison of this graph to this graph, what happens? What happened from the original, and then inside of the absolute value bars, I said x minus 2, and now we're over here. So my vertex here is now the point 2, comma 0. My x value has changed. Why? I wonder what happened with my x value there. So, was there a horizontal or a vertical shift? How far and in what direction? Well, let's take a look. Bring this up here. Let me bring that up here. So, I would say that the vertex point, the vertex moves from here, 0, 0, to here at 2, 0. So this moves to the right 2 units. And we could look at this originally and say x equals the absolute value of x minus 2. Well, that x minus 2 seems like if I were going to say that anything inside the parentheses, or excuse me, anything inside the absolute value bars here moves it horizontally, if I'm going to add or subtract a number from x and it moves it horizontally, well, x minus 2 makes me think it would move to the left 2, right? In general, I would believe that that moves it to the left 2 units. But over here, we went from 0, we moved to the right 2 units. It's quite strange to me. So that's something I want to think about as we go through and do these. Can we figure out as to why this moves it to the right 2 units? That might be a tough question to answer. But just know and understand that if it says x minus a number, then it's going to go to the right that many units. And if it says x plus a number, it's going to move to the left that many units. Well, we got 2 more we're going to look at here. Now I have the absolute value of x. Nothing inside those parentheses. Now on the outside of those parentheses, it says x, or absolute value bars. Excuse me, that's not a parentheses. The absolute value of x, and then we're going to add 3 to that. Well, since your teacher's super nice and awesome, I'm going to go ahead and just graph that for you and let you know what it looks like. Here you go. Got that guy there. And that guy there. So, what happens? What happened with this one? From here, from the original, f of x or y equals the absolute value of x, or f of x equals the absolute value of x, either way, it doesn't matter. For y equals the absolute value of x, what happened from our original here to this guy? Something to think about. And now let's take a look at this graph here. This graph looks like this. So what happened with this graph? If we want to take a look at the original, the original graph, y equals the absolute value of x, this one here, my original. And what I want to do is I want to answer the following questions here. I want to know when we add or subtract a number from the absolute value, like this, so just the absolute value of x, and then we add or subtract a number. So if the number's on the outside of the absolute value bars, what happens? So in other words, what happens with this graph here? And when there's a negative in front of the absolute value, what happens? So here's a negative here. Whoa, what happened here? How do we get to this point? So these are some questions I want you to answer. Give your best shot. I want you to answer those questions, and we'll have them in class on Monday. We'll try and answer those on Monday.